which was bad because I listened to a lot of Jimmy Carr at some point, and he has a horrible laugh.
And well, I also think that's a completely contrived
Completely.
laugh. Because I've watched earlier footage of Jimmy Carr, and he does not laugh like
He himself said he changed it at some point, not intentionally, but it just changed.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh no, I realized I'm adapting to this laugh. I have to watch someone else.
That's
Wait,
weird.
Jimmy Carr is the douchebag, the British one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
No.
You don't think he's a douchebag?
He's a comedian. He's a comic. It's a persona. I think he's trying to make people laugh, and I think he does a good job at that, so I can't hate it.
Yeah, I don't hate it.
I don't hate him.
But
It's just the
persona is
personality.
douchebag.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're talking about douchebag, I think Anthony Jeselnik is a douchebag. He's the one that makes all the dead baby jokes,
Oh my
essentially.
goodness.
Okay, he hasn't made his way across my YouTube feed yet. So.
Oh, he's a number. He just dropped a new Netflix special. I want to say a week ago.
Okay.
And he's funny. I mean, he hits the funny bone because he always has a twist. The twist is always it's setup. You expect a joke. The joke would be funny as is, but then he takes a hard right turn and turns it into something dark and disgusting. And so,
I mean, dark and disgusting. So, do you know Frankie Boyle?
no, not off the top of my head.
Okay.
I would have to take a look.
already?
So
Yes, we
sorry,
are.
sir, before we start actually talking, this is the length that you want to be. Yeah, this is good.
That's okay. Then I need.
Yeah, just
I'm gonna say you
Like-
can lean back and even pull it
Well,
to you.
I
So
think I'm missing the 11th question, but I think I have
Like
the other from
it's okay. It's the guilty pleasures.
What? But I think that's something I introduced at some point, right?
No, I
sure,
think
we'll give Leon
Someone
a bone.
did.
okay.
You can already see the dynamic these
I can,
conversations
yeah.
take.
No.
Well, nothing will be as bad as you saying I did nothing for the podcast in front of your students, which is completely untrue because I organized the topics. I asked people if they want to join, and then you said I did nothing.
And he was your third choice.
He wasn't.
I'm not going to bring that up again. We've tread this
You
ground
are not
before.
the third choice if I ask a group of people. You are part of the group.
Part
so
of the
you
first
were
choice.
doing the worst thing that you could do. You were shopping for people to do things.
No, I asked specifically 3 people. Those 3 I wanted to have in there. And just 2 others jumped off, which doesn't mean he's the third, which means he's the only one that's stuck.
I'm the porridge that Goldilocks ate. I don't know. Where do I
Why
land
turn it
there?
negative?
I don't think that's negative. Goldilocks seemed to enjoy it. Anyway, yeah. So I suppose we can get started whenever we want, right?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So greetings, persons of quality, and welcome back to this episode of Anglisten Assemble. With me here, as always, are Leon.
Hello.
And, of course, we can't forget the unequivocal Kate. Kate, how you doing today?
Oh, hi. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well today. If you don't know, I'm Brian, and today we also have our very special guest directly from language practice, David Cowan. David, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's a thrill to be here.
Well, let's see if we can't live up to those expectations. We're already setting them high. Leon's shaking his head. No, we're never going to live up to our expectations, and I feel like that's probably a fair thing to say. But we do some things here. We have a segment that we like to start off, which is the lightning round. And so, Kate, would you like to start us off with the lightning round? Questions for David.
No. I'm sorry.
It is an answer. David, so I'm going to start us off with, do you prefer tea or coffee?
Okay, the answer is fermented tea.
All right, I need to know what this means. Is this
Yeah.
alcoholic at that point, or?
I mean, there's alcohol in there, but it's, I think, like less than 0.5%. So I'm talking about kombucha.
Oh.
Yeah. So I don't know if you guys have tried it before.
I have tried like the bottled stuff. I've never had any homemade.
Yeah, so I think that goes through a process that makes it more stable and safe, but that changes the flavor and the taste. So if you make it at home, which is slightly more risky, but not that
You're
risky.
living on the edge.
If you're not living on the edge, you're taking up too much space.
Wait, what is a kombucha? Is it like the mushroom?
So
It's tea.
Yeah, so you like take normal tea
Uh-huh.
and like make it quite like a concentrated version of tea, and then you add like a culture, and then you basically leave it in a sealed bottle for, I don't know, like a week. There are 2 like rounds of fermentation, and then you can add flavors and stuff like that. Yeah.
But how did you decide that at some point, that you want to ferment your own tea, that you want to do kombucha?
Yeah, that's a great question. I guess I was going through a weird phase in my life.
And it's stuck.
Some people brew their own beer. Some people make their own kombucha.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what happened. I think a friend of mine, if I'm thinking back, I think a friend of mine is pretty into fermenting. And I think we've got a few fermenters in our department. Like Jessica makes kimchi, right?
Yes.
Yeah, which is really good. So it seemed like a natural step for me to start fermenting.
That's such a strange moniker. Are you a fermenter?
Yeah, it's not the sexiest moniker.
No,
Right?
it does seem a little off-putting.
Yeah.
But okay, kombucha. Do you add flavors? I mean, it sounds like
Yeah. So I mean, you can add pretty much anything. And so I last year around this time, leading up to Christmas, I added like apple, cinnamon, and honey, and that was like a very Christmassy taste somehow.
Okay.
Yeah, it was good. But
And
this
then-
year has been not a good year for fermenting in my life, so I've done nothing. And I actually still owe Jessica a puddle of kombucha. So,
Okay.
all right.
It
By making
sounds
this public,
like
I'm going to hold
one of
myself
the
accountable.
Greatest metaphors for something, but I can't figure out what we could replace it with.
I know. I was about to say, like, maybe my life was fermenting, and that's why I started fermenting. But I don't know what a fermenting life looks like. But
I thought that's what you meant when you talked about people at our department. It sounds like we're all procrastinators, so we're fermenting,
Yeah.
yeah,
which is fair.
If the shoe fits, I don't know.
I mean, have you seen those videos on Instagram?
No.
There is this guy, he ferments, he makes meat, and then he shows his entire process of adding honey and trying different fruits and different things. It looks so interesting, and I feel like I want to do that too.
There's nothing wrong with a good mead. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm the last person to shy away from it, but to make it yourself, I mean, that's the thing. I would just be so apprehensive that I'm going to poison myself to death somehow,
Yeah.
or at least give myself some kind of bad bout of food poisoning or salmonella or something.
Yeah, I think that's why I tended to drink the kombucha on, like around the holiday season, where like if I got sick, it would be
They
Less
do say
problem.
that suicide rates go up on the holidays.
But it would be such a sad death, like diet of kombucha.
Yeah, I would not want that on my gravestone.
No.
He fermented, he died. Yeah,
Death by kombucha does
Yeah,
sound
yeah.
like a really bad way to go.
yeah.
He died as he lived fermenting.
Nice. See, I thought the idea of fermenting maybe changing into something more pleasant or, I don't know, intoxicating, if you so will. Doesn't sound like a bad metaphor for how to be.
Yeah.
But fair enough. Leon, you want to move us on? Because Kate apparently did not want to ask any
Sure.
questions.
So that was all question one.
That was all question one.
In the-
Lightning
in the
round.
lightning round.
Yes, yes.
But this is such an interesting answer. It's like not tea, nor coffee, but kombucha. Well, it's like, why not?
It's fancy tea.
It's fancy tea. It's hipstery tea.
Yeah, I mean, as you guys know, I am the office hipster. So
Are you?
no.
No.
Who would that be? Who would that be?
Is there such a thing?
I think hipsters died out in the 2010s.
Yeah. Some of them are just like low-key hipstery.
Yeah.
Second question. What would be your favorite?
Thank God for Leon.
What would be your favorite comfort food?
Okay, you've got to hear me out on this. It's salad.
Good.
Yeah, I know.
We're
But-
listening.
Okay, so for me, comfort food kind of implies that I'm in a state of discomfort and the food brings me comfort, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm in a state of discomfort, which is usually like stress, that feeling is one of like bodily stress and I feel like unhealthy. And that's why eating a salad is like taking back control. And I make this like big multicultural salad and then I feel like, okay, this day is not being totally terrible because I'm ingesting some healthy, nice food. So it provides me comfort. I mean, it's not the traditional answer. And by now people are like, kombucha salad, this guy's a freak. And that's probably fair.
And he's denying the hipster thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
So
that does make sense.
Yeah.
Because people usually, when they feel like their life is not in their control, they want to find something that they can control. And for many people, it's food.
Yeah.
So either they eat nothing or too little or too much. And salad is a good option. It's better than just saying, okay, if I'm going to ruin something, then I'm going to ruin my health. So I'm going to eat 15 pizzas. So
Yeah.
I think salad is the way better option than just eating a lot of fast food or something.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that affirmation.
You're welcome.
Wait, what do you usually put in your salad, in your comfort salad?
I know you said multi-ethnic. Salad?
Multicultural. I thought
Okay,
that was
okay.
more PC.
Fair enough.
All right. So I guess it starts with like the classics, like cucumber, paprika. Did you say paprika in English? I've just started saying it, but I think you actually say red pepper.
I say bell pepper,
bell pepper. Okay.
but we know what we're talking
Yeah, and stuff like that. And then I start adding like beans and feta and stuff
about.
along those
Callback
lines.
the paprika.
Paprika. Oh yeah.
Boy, that's been a long callback in coming.
No, I think I heard the episode that you're referring to.
Oh.
You guys know I'm a super fan, so.
True. That's so cool. But
Someone gets our references. This is a new thing. It's lovely.
I'm kind of thrilled.
I forgot about it.
Yeah, I know, right? And he remembered.
Exactly. So, I mean, whatever's in the pantry, in the fridge. And yeah. And then, like, I drown it in vinegar, which is a kind of, I think, a South African thing. In South Africa, you eat your, like, chips or, like, pommes with vinegar, which I think you guys have talked about before on the show, too. I'm having
That's
weird deja vu
pommes.
moments.
We
Yeah.
did talk. I think we were talking about Canadians and malt vinegar
And
on fries.
That was
Jonas taking his comfort food would be chips
That's
and
it.
vinegar.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Call
Yeah,
back to
I mean,
Jonas. Shout out Jonas.
Jonas is basically an honorary South African. He
Yeah.
I think he knows more about South Africa than I do.
True.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay.
So, Kate, that means you get to ask a cool question as opposed to one of the
yeah.
first questions.
Yeah, and no, it's always me asking about tea or coffee. It's I
know.
feel like a
It-
waitress.
It's a
or
ladies
something.
first kind of moment. But yeah, if it makes you feel like a waitress, that's not what I'm going for.
What's your favorite book or favorite books, if you wish?
Yeah. Okay. So here I really couldn't decide on one. I came up with a short list of 3. So those 3 would be Disgrace by J.M. Coetzee, who's a South African author. The other one would be The Vegetarian by Han Kang, who's South Korean. She recently won the Nobel Prize for Literature. And I had this very hipster response, which was like, I've liked her for years before anyone knew about her, which is indefensible and
ground
unforgivable.
floor.
I mean,
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
glad that she's, getting recognized in this way because her books are incredible. But the one I guess I wanted to talk about would be Snow Country by Yasunari Kawabata, who is a Japanese writer. Funny enough, also won the Nobel Prize, but I never really hear anyone talking about him. He was writing sort of in the first half of the 20th century. And I had this weird experience where at my university library in Cape Town, the books, at least the English books, were like underground. So like it felt like entering an underground subterranean kind of lair.
The dungeon.
And, yeah, exactly. I spent many happy hours there. And I just happened upon this shelf of Japanese literature. And I saw this title, Snow Country. And I had at that point never seen snow before because it's not a regular occurrence in South Africa, especially not Cape Town.
Really?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
So I was feeling exotic with this book called Snow Country. And I got home, and I wanted to mention this because I'm interested if you guys have had this experience. I opened the book, I read the first sentence, and I fell into almost this kind of trance where like I just read and I lost any sense of time and space and location. I was in the book, and I finished in one sitting. I mean, it's not a long book. And by then it was dark, and I basically only came back to myself after finishing this book. And I've never read it again, and I wouldn't be able to tell you what it was about.
Fascinating. I've had this experience before. It's been such a long time, though, since this has happened. I've tried recently to read some books, maybe with old age. And reading experience, you start to get hypercritical, and there are certain books. So I'm a Dune fan, and so because the Dune films and the Dune series, they're all very contemporary. I tried to go back, not to the Frank Herbert books, but his son Brian tried to essentially carry on the story tradition and has written over a dozen different books. And so I picked up one of these, and I hate it. I just hate it. The storytelling is awful. The characters I don't care about. I mean, for anybody who's interested in a Brian Herbert book, I would just say, more power to you. But it's not for me.
Yeah.
And I keep trying, and I've tried it maybe a decade ago with one of the first ones, and very recently because of the new show that's come out, Dune Prophecy. Can't do it.
Yeah.
There's a show?
Yes, there is a show. It's an HBO thing. Fair enough.
You know how in touch I am with streaming services and so
What are you in touch with? If you're not in
Nothing.
touch
Not
with
even myself.
The chair and the headphones. I feel like those are two things you're in touch with at the moment.
But on the topic of losing yourself in like literature, I had that with Shining. When I read it the first time, and I was in a train and I missed my stop by like 3 stops because it just was like stuck in this book. And it wasn't a tram. It was a like international, like a train through whole Germany. And I had to like go back by an hour and like find a new train. And go back.
Must have been a good book. What book was it?
Shining.
Oh, The Shining. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Sorry. You did just say that.
I literally just said
Senior
it.
moment.
Okay.
I don't think it ever happened to me recently, but I think when I was reading a lot around when I was 15 or something, this is what I would do with the Dan Brown books. I would just buy one book, finish it in one sitting, and then have the post-book depression where you're still kind of trying to get over the book, and then it would take a couple of months to get over before you start a new one.
I see.
Yeah.
I read every Dan Brown book in the wrong order.
It's okay.
Very impressive. I didn't understand a single word because of that. And I was like, well, who's this person everyone apparently seems to know in this book?
Hey, why not? Give it your best shot. So we're already kind of skirting the idea of film. So do you have a top 3 for movies then?
I do. So I think more than a top 3, but if I had to choose, I would say Blue is the Warmest Color and Skyfall. It's a James Bond movie, which I feel is a masterpiece, underrated. And also, then I guess the film I would like to talk about would be Border. It's a Swedish film directed by a man originally from Iran. And I'm very hesitant here to give too much information because it is a film that you need to basically come at or arrive at with, not really knowing anything about it. Mm-hmm. But just to give you like the broad brushstrokes version, it follows this character, I think her name's Tina, and she looks somewhat deformed. And we are told in the film, at least in the beginning, that she has a kind of, let's say, a genetic abnormality. She has incredibly good smelling senses. So she is employed by the police to work at an airport, or I think a harbor, being Sweden, like security, like a border point. And she can sniff out like contraband items and drugs and stuff like that. Or I think more specifically because she can smell people's anxiety and fear. Mm-hmm. And we sort of just think this is all a bit strange and it's kind of dreamy. And then one day someone called Vora pitches up who looks very similar to her and seems to have the same kind of abilities. And it's about the development of their relationship. And it's incredibly transgressive. Also, I would say, has hands down the most bizarre sex scene I've ever seen in a movie. And it is part fairy tale, part romance, part police procedural, part mystery. I mean, it's just bridging a bunch of genres. And the one thing I found interesting about it was that I watched it with my wife, and we usually have similar opinions on movies and things like that. And she hated it. She thought it was so strange. And I loved it. And I still think about it to this day. So I wanted to put it out there because if anyone watches it, please tell me what you think about this. Send me an email if you're listening or if you guys watch it.
So the weirdest sex scene you've ever seen, even weirder than Crash. Do you know Crash? And
I don't know Crash. I know that in Crash, Ballard explored the eroticism of car crashes, which is a strange combination.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's weird things that happens with people's deformities and scarring from these car crashes. I won't go any further into detail, but yeah, I mean that's a pretty weird one too.
Yeah.
So, but no, it sounds fascinating. Also, it sounds reminiscent of Perfume from Suskind, the whole smelling thing.
Yeah.
Right.
But also the deformity, which the film doesn't capture, but the book certainly does go into detail about how this character has the sense of smell, but he's got something else that's lacking as a result.
This is also based on a book, well, actually a short story. I don't know if you guys ever watched the movie Let the Right One In. Okay. All right. It's also a good film. Anyway, it's this, I think, Scandinavian writer of sort of horror type stories. And he wrote the story, which Border is then based on.
Okay. Cool. Next
Okay.
question, Leon.
So we have now talked about books and movies. From whatever form of literature, what would be your favorite fictional characters/characters?
Okay, so now I leave hipsterdom behind me and can go more mainstream finally. So
It's Harry Potter.
it's not, but close. So I don't know if you guys know Attack on Titan.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's Levi from Attack on Titan. It's a classic choice. In fact, it's so classic it's boring. But
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Ah,
right now.
okay,
I'm
then-
sorry.
Leon,
Yeah, basically you take the most badass character in a show and just make him your favorite character. He's like
Okay.
Batman on steroids. He can do everything in the show,
But,
basically.
but what kind of show is that? Is
Attack
it
on Titan.
Is it anime?
It's
what
anime.
kind of
it's
genre?
anime.
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
Well,
no.
there
Oh.
is a live action-ish movie which we do not talk about.
I've heard it's terrible.
It
yeah.
is.
Okay.
Is this with Idris Elba or
No.
what? Who's in the live action version?
No, it's an Asian live action. You don't.
Oh, it's an agent.
yeah.
Straight to DVD type thing.
Oh, okay.
I think. Yeah.
Fair enough.
But I would love to have an Attack on Titan
With Idris
live
Elba.
action
With
version with
Idris
Idris
Elba. Why
Elba.
not?
Who would
man.
he be? Would he be the
It
Titan?
would be the Titan.
He would be a Titan.
Idris Hollywood, if you're listening, we have some
Call your
ideas for you.
agent. Yeah. I mean, the one thing I would say, yes, he is the greatest warrior in the show, but he's also like I think the shortest person in the show. So he's not like typically ripped and huge, right, Leon? I mean, his height comes up regularly,
Yeah, he's the agile
so to
character.
speak. Yeah, yeah. And are you looking at a picture, Kate?
No.
Okay.
It's all good. So I'm going to take us to from Attack on Titan to the linguistic side of this lightning round, which is slang terms. Do you have any slang or non-standard things that you like to say?
I mean, not anymore because I've kind of like extinguished all South Africanisms from my English because no one here would understand them. But South Africa is a country with I think 11 official languages, and we've got slang terms from lots of those that we incorporate also in South African English. So there's quite a long list to choose from. I'm going to go with yoh, Y-O-H, which is like an exclamation, not explanation. It doesn't explain anything. And I guess it is most similar to like krass in German. So it's something you say perhaps when someone says something a bit shocking or surprising. You say, yo, that's crazy.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So it might be comparable to like the bro.
Yeah,
something like
exactly.
this.
Yeah.
Can you give like a sentence example?
It's an exclamation.
Yeah, but I want to hear it in
Here,
context.
yo. Sorry. Okay. Say that test was really hard to me.
The test was really hard to me.
Yeah, it was so difficult.
Ah, okay.
Something like that, yeah.
Nice. And I learned something from Jonas last time. Busy.
Yeah.
In South African, busy dying. So amazing.
I had no idea that was a South African feature. I've just always used it. So that's like the last kind of thing that's left in my English from South Africa because I still say it. I'm busy working on this. To me, it makes so much sense. Like not saying I'm working on this compared to busy working on it. Like busy is so much more descriptive
Yeah.
and accurate.
Right. It's definitely implying that my concentration is focused right on this thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I was also surprised hearing that and seeing it as something that was specifically South African.
Yeah.
I think maybe the English or the American English equivalent, or at least perhaps the regional or ethno-lect equivalent from where I'm from would have been like, I'm steady doing this.
Steady.
Steady.
Ah, cool. I like that a lot. It's a certain balance to it, right? It's like,
Right. That certainly does have, but again, to me, it calls up this idea of focus and concentration and I don't know. But also this very, very progressive in the moment, I'm doing this right now and can't do anything else. Sorry.
yeah.
Well, I've heard busy. I've not heard steady. Is it very regional-lect or is it?
I mean, how much R&B do you listen to?
Fair.
I think that's probably a good indicator
Less
of where
than
you
you.
might encounter it. And that's, fair enough.
Okay, do you want to do the next question or should I?
Yes. Oxford comma, yay or nay?
I don't give a I mean, that's the honest answer. I just think
Finally, someone says nothing diplomatic, but rather, I don't give a shit.
I really have nothing interesting to say here. Whatever floats your boat, whatever buoys your barge. I don't know. It's just
No, it's perfect. It's a perfect answer.
When we started this, like the first time we did this, I didn't know which comma this is. So I looked it up and I had to figure out like if I use it or not. And so I started focusing on it when I write. And I realized I do it every single time just out of habit now. Because we started, like before that, I don't know if I did it, but now that we started talking about this regularly, I use it all the time. I also pay attention to it.
How does it feel?
Better.
Yeah.
Right.
It feels right.
It feels right.
Well, I'm going to be honest and say I've revised my thoughts on this as well. There are certainly circumstances where it just makes it easier to understand things, but that's when you're combining, like, I don't know, a couple of things that are maybe proper nouns that have the word "and" in it already, and so you're not going to use the comma where it's, I don't know, Franks and beans, so that you know that these things belong together, and you would definitely not throw a comma in there. But if it's Franks and beans in a list, then you definitely need to throw commas elsewhere so people can recognize where you're trying to make those distinctions.
It is also because a lot of stuff that I write, I also have to read out loud, and it, like commas and like any sort of punctuation, it just helps with reading because you have like visual indication for a break, and that's when I have like in there. I'm like, okay, I know I can have a like break in here, and I have an indication for it.
Right.
That's just always helpful.
Fair enough. But I love the answer. I think that's kind of where I started, and for some reason, just talking about it more got me more interested. And
You've been radicalized by the guests on this podcast.
I don't know about radicalized, but I've certainly been more introspective about my comma usage.
How about your full stops?
Oh, God, I hate that my full stops in text messages have disappeared at the end of sentences.
I have used them more after we just like talked about it.
Well, yeah, but I think that says a lot about our personalities.
Yeah.
You're going to
Contrarian.
be a contrarian, the revolutionary, and I'm more the accommodator, and I'll be like, okay, if people really would misinterpret this as anger, if I throw a period here, I don't want to make anybody feel like I'm angry at them.
Yeah.
It helps.
Do you use full stops?
You know, so I was listening, obviously, to this podcast, and I was busy cooking as usual. And I immediately picked up my phone and took a look at some of my text messages, and I never use full stops. And I agree that it's got an angry sort of like teachy kind of feel to it.
Exactly. Yeah. And this is what's my bachelor thesis going to be about. I decided to write about it.
Go meta. And don't put any full stops in your bachelor's thesis.
Or at least when you're ending paragraphs. Just don't throw a full stop at the end of a paragraph.
Or at the very last sentence, just in this bachelor, I have used so and so many full stops.
And Mihail is going to be the one to supervise it. It's like, yeah, I wasn't angry with you at all. So enjoy.
Just only semicolons.
Wow.
Semicolons are super underrated.
I don't think I've ever seen a student use a semicolon, and I've had students ask me what they're used for, like what is their function. Like, it's in between a comma and a full stop. It's hard to explain-ish. You get a feel for it.
Exactly. That's what's so beautiful about them.
You continue your thought. You can continue your thought with or without a full sentence following, and throw that angry period at the end of that clause in the,
See, a full stop is aggressive, a comma is fine, and a semicolon is passive-aggressive, right? It's right in between.
Interesting.
So I'm only going to use
I think it's the most gentle kind of thing to do. It's like you can take a break here, but also feel free to keep going.
So it's giving the reader options.
Exactly. It's the compassionate choice.
I love it.
So, if you could live in any literary world, which one would it be?
It would be Lord of the Rings post the Great War. So when Frodo and the rest of them have sailed off to the Havens and everything is fine in the world and Sauron has been defeated, and I think Tolkien even specifically mentions how good the wine is post this period.
I have two follow-up questions.
Yeah.
The first one is easy. Why is it not Attack on Titan?
Yeah.
And second of all, where would you live?
Okay. First question, because I don't want to be attacked by a Titan.
Fair.
And second question would be in the Shire. And I would like to be part of the Proudfoot clan.
You've got a family chosen.
Exactly.
So
and my feet would really fit in with the Hobbit world. Large, hairy.
So what size shoe do you wear? I didn't think I would be asking this question.
That's true.
No, they're not that large. 45.
I see. Okay.
How about you, Brian?
I'm depends on the brand. 45, 46.
Okay. All right.
45, 46. What are you guys? Kangaroos?
It's the size of your head.
You know, I've never imagined those things next to each other before, and now you're giving me ideas.
Wow.
I want to film it.
Okay, so now that we've got the literary world, if you could talk with one celebrity, author, historical figure, dead or alive, who would you like to talk with?
Okay, so I'm going to go with Ryokan. He is or was a Japanese monk, Zen monk. He lived sort of from the 1750s to the 1830s, and he wrote a lot of poetry. And he lived by himself for most of his life and was a very eccentric character, but also his poetry is full of humor, but also humility and beauty and simplicity. He lived with almost nothing. He had a bowl, which he used to go begging, and one set of robes. And there are just so many cool stories about him, of how funny he was and this crazy stuff he did. And I could imagine it being very calming and funny to spend time with him.
Have you been to Japan? Because I hear there is like an overarching topic
know.
and interest
And
for Japanese culture and
but
literature.
Beyond what I've said, I know nothing. So
Okay.
I've never been to Japan, and it's quite possible I never will go. So it makes me sound like I'm super into Japanese culture, but I'm not. And I
is
wouldn't be
where
able to
I
tell
come
you
in.
anything about Japanese culture, but Leon, go
Yeah,
for
this
it.
is where I come in, where I can explain everything to you. Except
Yes,
for
white man, tell us about the Orient.
White explain the Orient to us, yeah.
Just because you're friends with an Asian person doesn't mean you're one of us.
you're not Japanese.
I mean, Asian in general.
Well, she's closer than you.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
And I've taken the DNA test, but I haven't gotten the results yet. But
Oh, okay.
it can be.
What are you expecting?
I'm expecting Korean or Chinese. I'm not sure. But ethnically speaking, I am Korean. But I also expect some Russian and Finnish, probably like the Finland roots, because my grandfather, I don't know, he has the roots of the folks that live in Russia, but they have the Finno-Ugric connection. So probably there would be a certain percentage from Finland coming.
Would there be any ethnicities or, I don't know, places of origin that would upset you?
No, I don't think so. But and my boyfriend also did that, and he's Russian, and he says that he's Russian. And I'm trying to gaslight him into thinking that he's Iranian or something, because I read up on the region where he comes from. There has been a certain people that came from Iran, and I'm always pointing out like your nose looks like an Iranian one. You are Iranian.
How does he feel about that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm gaslighting him. He's not happy about that.
But he's still there.
Yeah, true. But no, I don't think anything would upset me. It would surprise me. And it would be interesting, I don't know, to find out why it comes from a certain
there's
region.
like a sprinkling of Africa in there. You would want to find out like what happened.
That would be amazing,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
Like, what am I, Congolese? Or
You never
but
know.
no, I don't think so.
On a long enough time scale, aren't we all African?
Exactly.
Well, my test would come back like surprisingly with 105% white.
Or just be a blank page.
It would just be an empty page. Like here's the result.
You're
They
white
also
as
went
the driven
meta.
snow.
They send you a white page.
There's nothing on it.
Nice.
Yeah.
You will die if you step into the sun. Have fun.
Good. So we've got one last lightning round question before our surprise question, and that would be guilty pleasures in terms of, I don't know, movies that you would be ashamed of admitting to watching, or YouTube channels, or Spotify podcasts like Anglisten Assemble.
We are the guilty
Excuse
pleasure.
me?
There's nothing to feel guilty about there. I just don't know if I can count it as work hours.
Fair. I mean, I wish we could. We should throw it on the list that we were given to keep track of our tasks, like listening to Anglisten Assemble to keep up with, I don't
Wait,
know.
I am counting it as work time.
You definitely can.
I was going to say, you can. You're allowed. That's part of your job. But listening to it alone, that's a different story.
On the weekend.
You're editing when you're listening.
I wish I would like get money for this or can count it for anything. It's just nothing.
Why didn't you start asking guests to bring you some money?
True, donations
Tip
on
jar
PayPal.
for Leon.
Put a charge here.
Can we do PayPal?
Well,
It doesn't
maybe-
make sounds.
That's better. Yeah.
He needs a bowl. I was thinking just like
Right, just like
your monk.
Ryokan.
Yeah.
And I wanted to say how much I respect you haven't said this explicitly, but it sounds like you're not that connected to the world of social media and stuff like that. And I find that inspirational, sincerely. And I want to know, did you like go cold turkey, or did you just never actually
Well,
start?
when I was like 17, I had a Facebook account. And I just never used it for anything because I didn't have anyone to connect with, because I didn't care for the people I went to school with.
Oh, carefully. This is trauma.
No. And then I just gave up on that. I never got into Instagram because I don't take any pictures, or like Snapchat because I don't take any pictures. And Twitter is for me the same as Facebook, so I don't see the point in it. And I only have WhatsApp, and I have like 20 contacts, 25. Because I delete everyone I don't write with within like 2 or 3 weeks. I like go regularly through my contacts, like, I don't need this person, gone.
It's like pruning a bonsai tree.
And the only thing I have is like YouTube, where I usually listen to something academic or either podcast or anything that like informs me about culture or literature or movie or whatever it is, very analytical stuff. And that's it. Like I don't see what I would gain from it. If I like, maybe it's because I didn't grow up with it, so I never had the thing of like, this is just my everyday life. But I saw someone like use TikTok and I didn't understand it. Like I'd have YouTube Shorts disabled on my YouTube. Like I don't even get recommended videos from YouTube because I have my like timeline disabled. So I only get recommendations of the channels I have watched.
Yeah.
It's like I'm so minimalistic when it comes to this. I have books. That's it.
Yeah. I mean, Ryokan would be proud.
The monk in
Yeah.
the 1800s would be proud. Oh, that's a good thing.
I think so too. I think it's great.
So guilty pleasure.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so yeah, I mean,
Social media.
This isn't so funny, but okay. So when Trump was elected in 2016, I want to say, it came as a big surprise, obviously. But to me, having only read really progressive left-wing media, I realized I'm in a bubble, and I didn't see this coming at all. So I made a conscious effort to start entering the right-wing bubble and seeing what like right-wing influencers were saying. And that is a bubble I haven't left. So since those 8 years, ago. And it's not a pleasure, but I do feel guilty. And maybe actually it is a pleasure, because I think there's a kind of sick superiority I have that when I listen to some of these people making these terrible arguments, and I'm not proud of myself for it. But it definitely hasn't radicalized me in any way, which I thought it might like push me towards the right. 'Cause I'm like, oh, it's a pretty good point, or something like that. But I have somehow found it hard to extract myself. Like, I mean, this makes me sound like I spend like all day listening to Ben Shapiro or something. But like I dip my toe into the pool of okay, Leon, go for it.
I wanted to ask if you like listen to Ben Shapiro or Jordan Peterson. It would be the next question.
For sure. I mean, not regularly, but like I kind of keep track of what these people are saying and how they're saying it, to get a sense of sort of which way the right-wing river is flowing, so to speak. And in that sense, I found it easier to understand what happened in the recent election.
Good.
Yeah. But I feel guilty because I think any like click on any of the stuff is in some way supporting them, right?
To an extent, for sure. But I think know your enemy is always a good.
This is what I wanted to say.
yeah,
Like,
moniker.
know your
Go for it.
enemy.
Yeah.
I think this is amazing, because when it comes to like arguing with people or trying to understand someone, a lot of people just say, I don't understand these people. They're dumb. They're ignorant. Why would I ever try to understand them? And it always leads to fronting, especially when it comes to American politics, where you just have two sides that hate each other. And like you don't have actual communication or arguments, because they don't want to talk to each other, because they don't want to understand another. And I think it's so important that they do, because you have to understand where someone is coming from and have to understand where their arguments are coming from to argue with them, not against them, because argumentations are with another, not against another.
Yeah.
And like for that, you have to understand them. And I think that's so important that you look into stuff like this to understand people.
That's true. Yeah. And I think I agree completely that the sense of trying to meet people where they are rather than looking down on them. I mean, I look down on like people like Jordan Peterson, for example, who I think are cynical in their exploitation of people's weaknesses and ignorance, let's say. Ignorance is probably in itself too judgmental, but you know what I mean. But I think the people who listen and who think, oh, that's a good point. I mean, I don't just dismiss them as stupid, but I'm like interested to know what they hear that they find convincing that I don't, and why do they find it convincing and I don't?
Right.
I'm sure if they read The Guardian like I did, they'll be like, this is terrible. And so
I find this super interesting. I did the same thing with Andrew Tate, where it's like,
Oh,
I
yeah.
want to understand where people are coming from that
Yeah.
watch him, and like looked a lot of his videos and like whatever he said and what, like his whole context and bubble. It was super, super interesting.
yeah.
I still don't think it is correct, or I don't understand why people think this way, but I can relate to how people might get drawn into whatever he's saying. Mm-hmm. And I think
Yeah.
it's the same with Jordan Peterson or Ben Shapiro.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I mean, I find myself, because I'm a big podcast listener, my bubble gets invaded from time to time. And I think people also that I've been interested in change. I was on my Spotify review of the year, and I noticed I've listened to something like 300,000 minutes of comedy podcasts. And so comedy is my genre that I prefer. And in so doing, there are people on the right, the left, and the middle that are all in my playlists from week to week. And I feel like the right step has kind of sneaked up on me in some way, shape, or form. So I've got people like Tony Hinchcliffe, who just recently was at the Trump rally in Madison Square Gardens, telling jokes about
The Puerto Rico
being
joke.
a trash island.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the strange thing is, I find him as a comic so empathetic towards people who are different. And I mean, I listen to his podcast. He's got lots of a very multi-ethnic band, almost all Spanish speaking. So it's really not I don't think he's racist against Puerto Ricans at all. I think he'll say anything for a laugh, as many comics will. But for 2 weeks, he was on every media outlet's shit list for having made this joke at a Trump rally. And he is a Trump supporter. So it's, at the same time, I don't agree with his politics. But his podcast is so inclusive, it's crazy. So these two things are like paradoxically aligned in this particular space.
Is that the comedian that like was at the Trump rally and like performed there? Or
Yes.
Is it...
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I didn't know that. Like I've seen the like performance at the rally. I was like, but okay, that makes more sense now.
Do you ever listen to Theo Von?
I have. It's not something that I regularly listen to. But
Okay, because I mean, he's also a comedian and
Yeah.
he's sort of more right-leaning, and he's someone whose podcast or shows, YouTube shows, I enjoy a lot. And
Yeah.
I mean, he's a good example of, you know, like, just because he's on the right, like he still has these qualities of compassion, I would say, and kindness and genuine interest in having conversations on both sides. So I would recommend checking out his stuff, and he's also very funny.
Well, and I would kind of lope him in with the whole Austin, Texas crew, like Tom Segura, Bert Kreischer. There's lots of these folks that are, I don't know, I want to say blue-collar kind of comedians for the U.S. market. And they're all pretty light, right-leaning. Although I don't know if that's why I approached them or how they managed to burst my bubble. But they did. And then there are people who I've been listening to or aware of for so long, like Bill Maher, who is he calls himself a liberal, and he's now very, very critical of the far-leaning left, as well as the Trumpists. So he's really, he says his political leanings have never moved, but he's become a centrist because politics have changed around him.
Yeah, that's the classic sort of justification, I feel.
That's
and
what he said.
I'm
And
very
I agree.
skeptical of that. And I also must admit, I find him so smarmy and smug and sanctimonious. And
He's all those things.
I can't stand him.
See, and I've liked him from the get. And I still listen to him, and I'll listen to him, and I will find myself actively getting angry at things he says.
Yeah,
But that's not a reason for me to turn him off.
that's very true. Yeah.
And so he also has interesting guests. So I enjoy that we get a nice palette of different people to listen to. What really pisses me off about him is his stance on the whole immunization thing during COVID. He was very anti and very vocal about being forced to get vaccinated. And still, all these years later, is complaining about it on his podcast. And I don't know, that rubs me the wrong way too.
Do you think there's been any audience capture there? That his audience has pulled him more towards the right? Or is he genuine?
He feels genuine to me. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't think his politics really have changed. But as I say, I agree with him that at least the focus inside of the Democratic Party, as well as whatever liberal, progressive, folks are talking about in the U.S., the focus has changed. Identity politics has become a much larger issue over the last 10 years, and I think there's no doubt about that. It's just that he's very critical of this further leaning of the Democratic Party or American progressives and liberals. But at any rate, I find that actually really helpful for, as you say, understanding what's going on and how people are feeling about the world around them, even though, as I say, I do find myself just getting unnecessarily angry while I listen to these things.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so we've gotten to our very last question here.
I don't want to ask this question.
Brian can ask it. He's been talking for the last 5 minutes, so why not?
As long as I'm on a roll, I'll shave the focus away from myself and say, okay, David.
Yeah.
Kate and Leon, they decide to have a duel of honor, and we have to be their seconds. We're handing them the pistols so that they can do their 10 paces, turn, and fire. Who wins this duel?
Have you already answered this question, Brian?
Oh,
He
I
never
have.
does.
I have, in a very diplomatic way.
Okay.
Go back and listen to our last season's final episode.
How violent can I be? As violent as I want.
Yeah.
Use your imagination.
Yeah.
We're in for it.
Because yesterday I just happened to rewatch a scene from Breaking Bad, and I can imagine that playing out here pretty well. That Leon perhaps very quickly draws out his pistol, shoots Kate, but Kate's still standing and manages, in her dying beats, to shoot Leon a couple of times. You both fall to the ground basically simultaneously, and so I would call it a draw.
Wow, that's interesting.
Leon, how does your first half victory feel?
I had one before the thing. I think it's 1 to something. But
No, it's 0-2.
is it?
Yes.
Well, no, I said I would win. That's one.
It counts. A vote for yourself is a vote.
A vote for yourself is a vote, for sure. So how does it feel getting that half affirmation?
But this is also a very diplomatic answer.
It's his first diplomatic answer, which is fine.
Yeah, true.
Okay.
Wait, what can I put then on our Instagram? Is it like, do I give 1 point to
Either
Leon
a half
and-
point to each or 1 point to each.
I'm gonna give 1 point.
Give a
to
full
each.
point. Yeah.
I
You
was
both
going to say
both-
1-1. That's a draw.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but I'm kind of, I have this highlight that goes like Leon versus Kate, and then goes 0-1, 0-2, 0-3.
Are you going to add all of those together and just kind of do a...
And the picture of the highlight is actually me and Leon in Romania standing with paintball guns.
How dare you put that on there?
But it's like, it's very small, you cannot zoom it in. And yeah, you actually look good in that picture.
You sound surprised. That's you actually.
That is kind of a backhanded
No,
compliment.
because you
You
never
actually-
take your pictures. You don't let people take pictures.
I told you, I'm like when it comes to pictures, I've recently started taking pictures of food that I cooked, not for Instagram or anything, just to send it to certain people because we have like a cooking group, and it's like the only thing that I like take pictures of, except for my cats. Like,
Okay.
What do you do with your cat pictures?
I usually send them to my family because they want to see them.
Yeah.
It's like,
Do they?
yeah.
Okay.
Like we have somewhat newer cats. We got them this year, and they're still very shy, so they
okay.
rarely like approach us. So every time like they like touch us or get close to us, we take like a picture to like show the progress of them slowly approaching.
Pictures of like a cat and like your finger
Yeah.
tentatively hovering, and look how
Yeah.
5 centimeters.
Like one of them we can now touch and like pet. So like every time she
Wow.
like cuddles us, we take a picture. It's like, yeah, we did it. It's not for food this time.
Nice.
Well, partially.
Now it's just the psychological association with you and food.
Oh no, she started with like she started like begging a bit to like get like treats, And at some point, she started just doing it because she was either cold or because she wanted to. And like, yes, she's fat and she still wants to cuddle.
That's a good moment. I agree. It's picture worthy.
Now I have a question for David that has been bugging me for quite some time.
If you had to choose a person to win.
It has nothing to do with us or the podcast, but rather I wanted to ask you about your accent, because it's very undistinguishable in a way that I wouldn't be able to say, or at least on the first, when I would talk to you the first time, I wouldn't say it's South African.
Yeah.
Does it have to do with you living in Germany for so long, or it's rather you trying to strip down a certain South African identity in order to fit into, I don't know, the entire, the general standard English accent?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know if I have an answer here, but I never had a typical South African accent. And my brother, for example, my brothers don't either. My parents, neither of them were born in South Africa. So neither of them had South African accents, really. And I would get comments at school, that I had a kind of strange accent. But if I listened to voice notes that I sent while I was still living in South Africa, or recordings, then I noticed that it is more South African than it is now. And I think it has changed. I mean, 95% of the people I spoke to in the first couple of years, I've been in Germany now for almost 7 years, and most of them were German speakers. And I think I'm a bit of a parrot. I tend to imitate who I'm speaking to at that point. I notice when Brian says good morning, I say morning. Like when you walk past, I'm like, why did I just say that? Just say morning. Anyway. So, that, I guess that's the answer. And but it's this weird thing, because I don't think German speakers think I sound German. But when I go to, for example, like Scotland to visit my brother, then people think I sound very German. So, yeah.
Because certain changes you make to like the pronunciation of words are closer to German than they are to American or British, which are the most two like known accents.
Yeah.
So if you hear someone speak that way in the UK or in the US, they would usually just associate with German.
Yeah.
Because they might not still know like Aussie or something, but
yeah. I mean, I had this weird experience of going back to South Africa like 2 years ago, and someone was like, the Airbnb host was like, "Oh, you speak great English, by the way." I'm from here. Don't you recognize me?
One of us.
Yeah.
One of us.
Wait, you said your parents are not native speakers of English?
They are. Yeah. Well, my mom was born in Germany.
Okay.
My grandmother's German. And she moved to South Africa at the age of 11. My father was born in Zimbabwe, but his parent, well, back then it was called Rhodesia, and his parents were from Scotland. So, yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
And my father, I mean, he was educated in Oxford, and he had, I think, some influence there. Like he's one of the only people I knew who, and have known, who pronounce white like white.
Oh.
Yeah.
Got that distinct H.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm probably going to ask this question that you've been asked in so many different life situations before, and that would be, how did you get here? How did you get to Germany? What brought you from South Africa to here?
I think there's the part where I have to out myself as the departmental Nepo baby, right?
Oh, yeah. Which isn't
I don't know,
true.
do you?
I mean, okay. I'll try to keep this relatively short and punchy. So I was finishing up my master's degree in 2017, and I had run out of money. That was one thing. And I had just broken up with my girlfriend of 3 years, and my father passed away. And this was all sort of in the space of a couple of months.
Yeah.
And there was the sense of things kind of coming to an end in various ways. I was very close to my father, and I'd been in this relationship and so on. And of course, the sense of my bank account coming to an end too. So I needed a job, and I also wanted to kind of do something adventurous. And my aunt and uncle live in Bielefeld. My uncle is my mom's brother, and he is married to our esteemed colleague, Pat Skorga, right? And
You
didn't
didn't
know
know?
that?
To be fair, I never research the people that come on here. I'm always like, we have the rules. Brian knows everyone. Kate knows like the gossip. I know nothing.
Okay.
So whenever someone comes on, I'm like, let's see who this person is. I've read the name. I don't know who that is. Let's see.
Yeah.
Because I don't even know like which name belongs to whom. So I have no idea about the connection at our university.
That's good. Yeah.
So this is like first time I've heard about this.
Yeah. Okay. So exactly. So I got a job teaching at the Volkshochschule and teaching English there, and that was a nice start. And I realized I really like teaching English. Before I'd taught at university, but economic history. No, I mean it's an interesting topic.
That was an interesting reaction.
But
No, I had like two words that I usually don't like, especially together, economics, and it's like, and then
And
the
history.
history. History is interesting, but to a certain point, once you don't have to prepare for an exam.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I like preparing for the history exam. That was fun.
Yeah, no, nerd.
You like linguistics. Go away.
I do think a certain magic happens when you combine the two, though. I found it certainly a very interesting topic, and but the course I taught, for example, was called "The Economies of Feasts and Famines," which is basically looking at like why so many people die when they run out of food.
Oh, that's
so it's
interesting.
not like a barrel of laughs, right? And then English, in contrast, can be a barrel of laughs, and it is often very fun. So I found it a more relaxing and interesting subject to teach. And then I went off to Scotland for a bit, and then I decided to come back. And I started working here as a adjunct. And then I went to Paderborn and worked there. And then I came back here in 2023. Yeah.
But you got the job not because you're a nepo baby, right?
I
Because you
certainly
are.
hope not. I mean, Pat wasn't on the committee, and
yeah.
or she definitely didn't have voting powers. I hope.
Something like that.
Something like that,
I was a
yeah.
member of the committee too, but it was a very fair committee.
It was, and I hope I don't come across as totally incompetent and only here because of Pat. And I mean, I think also for me it was quite important to have these two relatively successful years in Paderborn, which had nothing to do with Pat at all. And I think then coming back here, I felt less this sense of like, okay, it's got something to do with my connection to Pat.
Sure.
Although, of course, I just want to be clear, like my connection to Pat is nothing but a blessing in terms of, the emotional side of things. She's, as you guys know,
I was going to say
a wonderful person.
I imagine more than just the emotional side. She's awesome. And so
Yeah, exactly.
any of us who have a connection with Pat are very grateful for that connection.
That's true. But I didn't know them bore I came to Germany.
Really?
Like we had, I'd visited Germany once as a, 5 or 6 year old. And since then we had no contact, not through any kind of bad blood or anything. We just had very separate lives. So when I got off the Flixbus in 2017 at like 10 o'clock at night, I was worried I wouldn't even recognize them. And I didn't know if we would like each other. And it turns out we like each other very much. I don't know what Pat
great.
said in her podcast. But I like her.
Oh no, she at some point, and I didn't know that before Pat told me that you are her nephew. It's like, yes, David is my nephew. Didn't you know that? It's like, no, it's not that obvious.
Yeah. I mean, we're not blood related, right?
Yeah,
So
true.
Wait, did she say that in the episode?
No, she didn't.
Okay, then I
she
Didn't
wouldn't.
blank on it. Okay.
she's more discreet.
I was going to say, I don't think
You
anybody
are
was
not.
trumpeting this
Yeah.
on high.
All right.
So now that we've talked 10 minutes about this.
Well, to be fair, he initiated this answer. I was just wondering about how he got to Germany. And
Wait,
so
what was how old were you when you saw your first snow?
That was 2017, my first winter in Germany.
That's
So I was
crazy.
26.
Wow. How did it feel? Like, how would you
I
describe
was like a little child. Like Leon with his cats. I was walking around taking photos, sending them to my family.
Here, have you seen snow? I did.
You have to at some point go to Japan and see the snow they have, because there's like a famous picture of like 10 meters of snow, and they had to carve basically the road into the snow so they can move through this. It's amazing.
And that's where the book Snow Country is set.
I assume
Yeah,
so.
exactly. Yeah. So part of the story, I think, is that they get cut off by the snow. Yeah.
I listen to people be, I don't know, somehow enamored of snow. And coming from Michigan, where we had meters and meters high snow for, I want to say, at least 4 months of the year, if not 6 in bad years, there is nothing I could be more sick of in this world than frozen water that falls from the sky. It is a blight on humanity and need never be seen again as far as I'm concerned. I am team global warming if it saves me from seeing snow
Wow.
any other time in my life. I'm going to be honest
Now we know what effect the right-wing podcasts have had on Brian.
Next week it's going to be global warming doesn't exist.
Yeah. The Joe Rogan of Germany. Yes.
We always considered Brian as Jack Black of our university.
And now it's Joe Rogan.
And now,
Yeah.
but Joe Rogan, yeah. And if you lose all
only
your
if our
hair,
podcast gets to be like 3.5 hours long, okay?
Yeah.
Because that's the Joe Rogan style.
Yeah. And anytime a guest sort of says something slightly weird, don't question it. Just say, wow, that's
I
crazy.
didn't know that.
Yeah. Jamie, check that out. And then,
Nothing.
yeah, it looks factual.
There's lots of things out there. I mean, there are lots of podcasters out there that have this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Paul Giamatti is he's a great actor.
He's great,
but
yeah.
his podcast, The Chin Wag, is also quite great. And what he always says, it's almost... It doesn't even matter what the impulse is. His go-to phrase is fascinating. Like you'll hear that word at least 8 times per podcast, and it's become, I don't know, almost a joke on his own podcast. So yeah. I mean, everybody's got their tick.
Yeah.
I think mine is probably the word fair.
Fair enough.
Fair enough, what I would say. Yeah, fair enough and hanging in there.
and mine is definitely. That's what I do most of the time. Yeah, definitely.
Leon?
I don't have one. I assume I do, but I don't know which one it is.
Yeah.
So.
I also, nothing comes to mind.
It's okay. You don't talk much.
Self-awareness is a hard thing, Leon.
Let's say that
which
again.
you have yet to master.
What, self-awareness?
Yeah.
Pot calling the kettle black, yeah, sure.
Maybe that's your tick. I mean, it's endless
What, comeback?
bickering between the two of you. And Brian patiently saying fair enough to end things.
Yeah, there we go.
That's usually Brian's job.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
The eternal parent here.
Yeah.
It does feel like that sometimes. I got to be honest.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? We're all adults.
Sure we are. Fair enough. So, I think, David, we've probably taken up enough of your time. And so I would like to thank you very much for coming down and having this conversation. I'd love to have more conversations if you'd be willing to come back.
For sure. It's been a pleasure.
Excellent. And Leon, always a pleasure. Kate, always a privilege.
Yeah. I don't
It's
have
the right
anything
order,
to add. Yeah, it's okay. I'm fine.
All right, everybody out there in Anglisten land, thank you very much for listening. Have a lovely rest of your day, and Excelsior until next time.
Give you a try. If you do well, you can go a long way. But if you fail,
The producers pledge that they will produce
you
only
can go a long way
programs
too.
which will contribute to your musical enjoyment and successfully meet your high-quality standards.
This episode of Anglisten Assemble was privately produced as a joint non-profit informational project of students and staff at the beautiful Bielefeld University. All views and opinions expressed on the show in no way reflect the official views of the university and are solely the perspectives of our hosts and guests. Information provided is true to the best of our knowledge at the time of production, but this is naturally subject to change as some details are time-sensitive. Anglisten Assemble is produced and edited by Kate Lee, Leon Dalashel, and Brian Rosema for the private use of our quality audience. If you want to get updates and further info about Anglisten Assemble, check out our Insta at anglisten.assemble. And if you're enjoying what you hear, throw us a 5-star review on Spotify. Those help us spread the word and get more Anglisten to join the assembly. Musical accompaniment today includes the sonic stylings of music from allesgimafrei.de. And finally, we'd like to thank our special guest today, the dazzlingly deft David Cowan.